Okay, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another live stream. This is the first stream of 2026. How exciting! We're going to be talking about character design, the art fundamentals, and going over some fun process stuff today. So, yeah, enjoy, and we'll just get right into it. Okay. Oh, wait, hang on, pause. For those of you who don't know, my name is Gabriel Quinn. I'm an artist and designer. I've done illustrations for games like Lorcana. I've done concept art for video games, and I've done viz dev for animation projects. And yeah, overall, my passion is world building and education. So we just talk all things art and design, all things world building, and I make it a point to answer every question in the chat. So if you're joining me live, feel free to ask any questions you like. And if you're watching it back, feel free to comment any questions below, or comments too. Those are always nice. All right. So I wanted to talk about this design here. This is a design of a knight I was working on today, moments ago. Let's hop over to Photoshop here so I can get a bigger look at it. Move OBS over there. Yeah, nice, great, cool. So this is a knight that I just started drawing today. It came out of a 1-hour character design challenge. These are challenges I run fairly often on my art Discord server, which you can join below through the Patreon link. But, talking about the design here, I started off with, we all started off with the same prompt. So when we do these challenges, sometimes we use images as a reference. I know using images as your inspiration for your character design is really popular. So sometimes we do that. But today we were focused on using words as an inspiration. So where my mind went with the prompts that we were using, which I'll bring them in here, we use a random word generator. So these are the words that we had. We had the words memorial, eat, and venture. So 3 pretty strange words. And the way we do it is we don't really go, oh, those aren't good, let's re-roll it. We just stick with whatever it gives us, because that's the fun. That's what makes the interesting idea. So yeah, when designing this, I started off thinking about the word memorial. The first thing I thought of was like a funeral. We all were like, oh, funeral, funeral, funeral. But, upon looking at the actual definition of the word, it's more like a honoring of an event. Like it's something to commemorate something, or to remember something, or to honor something. It's like a plaque or a statue. It can be anything. But there's a lot of there's a pretty significant noun there. And then eat is interesting. There's a lot of different terms or ways you can go with eat. And then venture is actually, it's not straightforward. There's a lot of definitions for that too. There's like a business venture, a financial venture. There's also the idea of doing something dangerous. So that kind of made me want to lean into this design more. The only stipulation, aside from being inspired by these words, was your character had to be a knight. I'm doing knights for all of January. I'm doing a bunch of knights, so this is one of the knights that I'm doing for this month. So starting off with this sketch, I had this idea of, okay, so we have to have some kind of commemoration here. How is that going to work? What am I going to do there? And so I kind of had this idea of, what if there was this group of knights who survived something really harrowing, and in order to commemorate this tragedy, or this kind of defeat, or maybe not a defeat, maybe it's some kind of like Pyrrhic victory, some kind of triumph through, insurmountable odds or something, they wear that almost as a badge of honor. So I had this idea of a regular degular knight, but he has some kind of inscription on his armor or something. I didn't quite know where I wanted to get to just yet. And then the idea is that they're so battle hardened that they're like the first through the breach. So that kind of venturing into the unknown, venturing into the danger was kind of part of that idea. So after quickly sketching down these lines, super messy sketch, I started to just block out some metallic tones, just put some stuff down, see how I felt about it. And this was a good spot to be in, because you kind of get a sense of the forms, and when you squint, you kind of go, oh, that looks kind of cool. It's a knight guy. That's kind of sick. Then I started to kind of paint in a little bit more of the textures. But that was after I was looking at the inscription design. So after I blocked in these values, I was like, what's going to be actually painted on here. Mind you, I only had an hour for this challenge, so I can't do anything complex, even though I love complex patterns, inscriptions, telling story in all that ways. When you only have an hour, you have to be pretty bold and simple. So I decided to do this idea of this kind of coiling dragon serpent on the armor. Then the story started to come together, which was the story of this knight is a part of a group of knights who survived like a fight with a dragon. Maybe there was like 1,000 of them and only 100 survived, or, something really intense, But because they survived, they defeated the dragon, they all paint the red dragon on their armor, and that kind of makes them really cool. And so then I started to kind of rework the values underneath to kind of support the red dragon look, and I started thinking about reflective light and all that stuff. After this point in the process, I started to I flattened the image and started to do some overpainting. And in that process of overpainting, I ended up kind of where we're at now, where I was just kind of cleaning some things up, changing a few other things, cleaning up the silhouette a little bit, and getting to this kind of strong look here. And now we have a kind of a painted sketch that we could go in any number of directions with, which I think is a cool thing. And I wanted to talk about, what this process looks like from a more theoretical point of view, because seeing someone just draw something out, it can be cool, and you can kind of go, oh, cool, nice, all right, well, I guess I'll just draw it and do that. I think that there's a little bit more to it than that, typically. And I wanted to kind of share with you what's going on in my brain when I'm doing this, and that's not just like the doing of it. There's a whole kind of world of thinking going on. Even if I'm not 100% conscious of it, it's kind of happening. Let me double check that everything's running smoothly. I always have to do like a double check and see if everything's running smoothly, But yeah, we will grab this here. Ah, Marcus and Marco, welcome to the chat, guys. Welcome. All right. Yeah, I think I'm going to grab the link really quick and make sure that the folks can see it. Cool. All right. Whoa, right. So what goes into making a character design? This is a bit of like a hot topic when we're talking about art and concept art. Character design is always the most flashy, interesting thing that people really want to just dig right into and get into. And I think that's fantastic. I'm going to make a little bit of a gray background so it's not blinding me and washing me out. So when we're thinking about character design, we have to work backwards sort of from what that outcome is. So if the outcome is this, right? The outcome is a drawing or a design of a knight or something like that. If that's the outcome, your character design, let's say. Writing. There are things that you could consider about design that may not come to mind immediately, especially if you're starting out, but even for people with a lot of experience, it's easy to kind of step over these different qualities of what a design is. So when working, specifically when you want to work quickly, there's a lot of questions you need answers to pretty upfront. So one of the elements that makes a character interesting over something like a prop or a creature or something else, or even those things are also interesting in many ways, but usually purpose, some kind of purpose to the character. What is this character doing and why? And there are a lot of ways to answer those questions, but that's a huge component that you need to include when you're designing. And that's also linked to their story. So I would say purpose and story. And we can even, like in brackets, write narrative, because narrative is another really important part of this. So their narrative is also tied into that. Narrative is like one of the most important things in design in general, right? So you need to figure out what is their purpose, what is their story. This is one of the fundamental questions you have to answer. Another question you have to answer is, like, how are they achieving their purpose? How are they trying to achieve their purpose? So it's sort of the what and then the how. So kind of attached to this, we're thinking about how is this going to happen? And that also feeds into the design. There's also kind of motivation too. So motivation kind of feeds into the purpose in the story. What's the motive? So we need a motive as well. So we need a motive, a purpose, a story, how they're going to achieve that purpose, and how their motivation is driving them forward. And in the actual design, the only requirements you need for the actual design is you need some kind of visual clarity. So it needs to be legible and you need to be able to understand. So in order for a character design to actually reach the audience, let's say, which even if the audience is just you, but let's say you have your audience, right? And we'll just say it's you for now. Or we'll say younger you, like let's say we're showing this to younger you. How is it going to get to the audience? The only way they're going to be able to receive it is if it passes the clarity check. Is it clear? Right? And clear I use as kind of a catch-all phrase to say that things that we want to be correct are correct. Things that we want to make sense, and things that are supposed to be noticed are noticeable. That's what I mean by clear, because making your designs clear is just super, super duper important. So running it back, one reason why we love fantasy characters, let's say. So coming back to our guy here. One of the reasons why we absolutely love fantasy characters is because their purpose generally is super clear, because we're typically designing with a vocation in mind. And this happens a lot in fantasy. You don't just kind of see regular people in fantasy all that much. If they have an instrument, you think, oh, this character is a very kind of bard-like, sing-songy character who's trying to make money with performance. That's what you think immediately. If you see a character in a jester outfit, you think, oh, he's trying to win favor in court, and, he's there with the king, and he wants to impress the king, and that's how he makes his living. Typically, things are tied to a vocation, because back then, it was a lot less ambiguous. I mean, when we design, we design with a lot less ambiguity. Hard to say that it was actually ambiguous, but typically a blacksmith's hands are going to be dirty and they're going to be covered in soot and they're going to be strong or whatever. And if you're a merchant, you're maybe wearing robes or something a little bit nicer and all that stuff. If you're a farmer, you're only really on the farm except for like one day out of the year. You go into town and sell your cow or whatever. Bit of an oversimplification, I know, but here we are. But typically we're designing with a vocation in mind. Why is this important? Well, because you've kind of solved a big chunk of the purpose. So when you say, I'm going to do a knight design, a knight is specifically a combat-oriented character. If you're designing a knight, it means that they are fighting. That's why they got knighted, and that's why, to fight and from fighting typically is why people get knighted. So a knight is somebody who fights. Typically, a knight is part of some kind of order. Even if it's just serving like the ruler or the king or the lord or whatever it is, typically knights are beholden to someone, right? They're not a king, they're not a lord, they're not a whatever. Maybe a lord was a knight or used to be a knight, but typically, you're a lord more so than you're a knight, especially if you become a lord or whatever. So yeah, a knight is a combat-oriented vocation that is attached to some kind of pre-existing societal structure, because the only reason people care that you're a knight, the only reason the title matters is because everybody believes in its collective significance. That's the only reason why it would matter. So you're in some kind of structured society. So a knight wants many things. There are many options for knights, right? If we go with like a classic fantasy benevolence vibe, they want to uphold good in the land, very King Arthur style. They want to do good in the world. They want to, serve the nation and protect the innocent and all that good stuff. If we're thinking more kind of George R.R. Martin land of more dystopian fantasy, grueling, realistic stuff, maybe they just want glory, accolades, they just want money, they want power, who knows? Power over others. Maybe they're sacking villages with their men and their soldiers. The motivations become a lot more gray and strange, but it's within this overarching capsule of options that we have. We have a lot of options, so exploring those options is very easy when you have a clear vocation. If you say, I want to design a wizard, okay, is it a good wizard? Is it a wizard that's dedicating themselves to study? Is it a chaotic evil wizard? Is it a kind of an idiot savant wizard or something? Who is this character? So solving that purpose is huge. And when you're designing within a genre, typically you have these archetypes. Like if you're designing in fantasy, a knight is an archetype, a ranger is an archetype, a wizard is an archetype. And so much of the purpose is already solved. That's part of why we like fantasy, because it immediately puts us on track to something familiar and usually successful, right? So the how of everything and the motive for everything, we just kind of talked about that, of what they want and how they're going to do it. Typically, knights are going to get their goals met by combat. That's what knights are going to do. They're gonna fight the bad thing, and they're going to succeed. Or they're going to fight the good guys and win and take over the world, or who knows, you know what I mean? But that's typically the motivation of how knights are going to get their jobs done, right? Unless you're the Knight Templars from real history, and then you're just a bank, basically. All right, let's check and see if we have any questions here. Hey, what's up, Sam? And Ren, what's up, Ren? Yeah, been a while. Nice. So yeah, those are some elements to design that I really wanted to discuss here. Okay, now bringing this all together when you're drawing. We just talked a lot about theory, process, everything running through your head while you're designing. And I said kind of at the beginning that I'm thinking, okay, a knight order that was almost defeated by a dragon, but managed to defeat it, right, down to the wire. They defeated the dragon, and a few of them got out, and they bear this cool insignia of the coiling red serpent that they destroyed. How cool is that? And when you see them in battle, to fear them, because they've seen things that that you will never see in your lifetime. They've conquered foes that you can never compare to. That you don't have a chance against these guys. It strikes fear, it's power, it's awesome. Frankly, it's just really cool. So how do we get from the idea and thinking through all of this stuff into actually drawing the thing? I know a lot of online art resources really hammer the idea that, listen, if you want to draw, if you want to be good at art, you have to study and understand the fundamentals. You have to do it. This is not great phrasing for artists, because, you also need to get 8 hours of sleep every night, have a regular sleep schedule that is productive and is working for you. You need to eat nutritious foods, and you need to get some daily exercise. How many of those things do artists actually do? How many of those things do you actually do? Probably a few of you, and great for you. I'm trying to do my best as well to stay on that stuff too. But typically, that motivation doesn't really work, honestly. Kind of saying things like, well, you really got to do it. I know it sucks, but you really have to do it. You really have to, get there and understand and all of that stuff. And I think that it's a big missed opportunity, in my opinion. There's this hindsight inflation of challenge that a lot of people do with everything. Your parents did it too, and they're like, back in my day, I had to walk to school 6 miles through the snow, uphill both ways. The uphill both ways is a bit of a online joke. But it's like, oh, it was harder when I was young. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have this, and it was this. Oh, you have it so easy. And then artists will kind of, they'll boom, like older, more experienced artists they'll boomer you. They'll be like, I didn't have all the resources. If I had the resources you had, how good I would be, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. If wishes were horses, buddy. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, people like to look back and they like to really hype up their achievements with themselves. So an artist who has made it through the, let's call it a crucible of developing their fundamental skills. Artists that have made it through this brutal, grueling process, they really want to flex that they did it. A lot of them, maybe not all of them. A lot of people are pretty humble and stuff, but a lot of them will really flex their, I learned this, I understand this, and when people are trying to get good at art, that seems very, I don't know if inaccessible is the right word, but it paints a picture of learning art in such a negative light, and such a challenging and intentionally frustrating and suffering light, like you have to bleed for this, and it's funny how literally we're just drawing, dude. Like we're just drawing and painting. It's really not that deep. But people like to overhype how important the fundamentals are. And because of that, we get this like eat your veggies style narrative around learning the fundamentals. Like, oh, well, you got to eat your veggies. You got to be healthy. You got to learn the fundamentals. It's such a cheat, unfortunately, because then it creates this oppositional reaction among many young artists, or I'll say developing artists, who say, well, I don't get good sleep. I don't eat nutritious foods. I don't have good organizational skills. I don't have these things. I'm very disorganized but I love drawing and I'm drawing a ton, but I'm not that type A kind of person. So I'm just going to not learn the fundamentals. I'm just going to draw. I'm going to hope that this drawing turns out good. I'm going to hope that I just get better just by doing it a bunch. And more artists than you think have done that, and actually done pretty good. Like a lot of artists who didn't have access to real, proper, traditional academic educational material around art have become fantastic, phenomenal painters, usually just from an unbelievably large amount of mileage. Now, there's a strange thing that's happened in our world, which is that now we spend pretty much all of our, let's say, free time, all of our time in which we're not beholden to some greater purpose, usually consuming some kind of, content, either like a video game or you're on your phone or whatever it is. And it's easier when like you're in high school or younger to stay in a constant state of drawing. But as you get older, it can actually be quite challenging to maintain that habit of drawing, especially when your phone is really competing for your attention like 24/7. Now, why am I bringing all of this up? Because it's not really about character design. It's not really about any of the stuff we just spoke about. And yet it is 100% about this stuff. Because if you're going to bring any of these ideas to life, you do need the fundamentals of art and design. You absolutely really do. If you want your characters to be clear and alive and interesting, you really do need to learn some fundamentals. But the fundamentals of art and design, it's not eating your veggies. You are simply learning what's going on with certain things. That's all you're learning. It's really not that deep. People are like, oh, anatomy. Oh my gosh. Anatomy's, oh, it's so complicated. It's so crazy. It's just bones, dude. It's just bones and some muscle groups. And like, if you want to get super into it, yeah, you can like go in and learn every muscle name and all that stuff. But you really don't have to do that unless you want to, depending on what you want to achieve and accomplish. It's really not that crazy, but then people overhype anatomy and they're like, oh, I gotta learn. Well, if I go to learn anatomy, I have to learn every single tendon, every single striation, every single muscle, every single this. No, you don't, dude. No, you don't. Just like start with the skeleton. It's super simple. The skeleton's super simple. And anyway, so just start in that way. But the same is true for learning about form. Right? Form, like drawing form and learning how to kind of track space and getting a feel for how to draw things that have form. Everybody learns these kind of technical drawing methods of you draw the cylinder and you map it with the straight lines. And now you have a cool object that has some form to it or something. we learn these technical drawing tools to help us understand form, and that's great, and that's fantastic. I think it's really important. And then we get to the stuff that seems very strange and very hard to understand, like rendering and light. Those two things is where people get really tripped up, and they get so tripped up that there's like a million billion classes on color and light. It's kind of hilarious. I think it's a bit of a meme, to be honest. There's like a million classes on all these sites on color and light. And those classes are great. You'll learn a bunch. But really, mostly what you want to understand about how things work is just the simple fact that, if you have light hitting a form, if you want to describe the form of something and you can't describe that form with just the lines of it, then you want to describe it with light, typically. And if you have a sphere and you have a light source, you can describe that form with that light source pretty simply, and you can even do little highlights or whatever on that form. And people have learned this forever. And if there's an object nearby or there's a case for it, then there's some bounce light, which really makes it feel like a sphere. And we just rendered that sphere with like 5 brush strokes because all we did was describe form with light. Now, the trip up that people get is they study color and light and material separately. They separate all of those things. But if you gain a holistic understanding of how kind of these materials work, then you can learn rendering in a much more streamlined way if that's something you want to learn. So, if you want to put down an idea really quick, I'll talk about how all of these fundamentals apply to this design. But something like this, for instance, right? If it's kind of more of a matte surface, then it's not going to be 100% reflective of the light source. But if the surface isn't matte, if the surface is glossy, what you'll get is, yes, you'll get these kind of gradients of light, but you're going to have a very clear reflection of that light source. And if it's glossy, but there's a little bit of texture, you might even get a couple little scratches around the light source because those little scratches are going to catch light because they're indentations. And it's a super easy thing to track because if you have a plane that's facing the light source is going down. If you have a little break in that plane like this, these areas are directly facing the light source, so they'll be very reflective. So if you have a round surface and part of those scratches are facing, the light source here, like this side and this side, they're going to catch light. But they'll also kind of show some shadow as well. So you can also kind of show some shadow on some other sides too. If you have like a deep groove, then you can sort of draw those little dark spots in, and then you have some scratches on your material. And typically all the detail you're going to see is in this area here where light kind of transitions into shadow. So if I just add a bunch of kind of squiggly scratches, it sort of looks a little bit like a glossy bowling ball that's just been, used a million billion times. It kind of has that feel, right? Because of these kind of scratches that you're seeing all over it. So now we've added some wear to this kind of somewhat glossy object. So material, what I personally use to define rendering is all rendering is light interacting with a material. And typically that material has a local color. So that's what I'll use to describe the color as well, is that material usually has a color, whatever that material is. So now let's talk about this actual piece here. So when I was just noodling this in, there was a couple things that, I like the stripe I put here. I'm going to keep that. So when I was just kind of noodling this down, right, there were certain things I was thinking about, which is that this knight is covered in armor, right? If we look at that first super loose, rough little doodle here that we did of just blocking some of this in before we did any of that stuff, I was thinking about very, very simply, we have metal. Metal is highly reflective, so if the light is coming from this direction, which it looks like it is, it's going to hit all those areas that are facing the light. and it's going to reflect pretty directly, and certain edges are going to catch light. So like this edge here, this is going to catch light. This little edge here is going to catch light. So you're kind of tracking what is actually facing the light, what is going to catch this light. And the local value we chose for the metal is just like a neutral gray. We didn't do like a blue to steel or anything like that. But, I actually think that maybe this knight would look better if he was in black armor. Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking about it now. If I wanted him to be in black armor, I feel like that would suit the red really well. So, honestly, I might just repaint it with the black. That might be what we do today. Yeah, so we did that. And then when I was looking at the paint on the armor here, there's, again, two things that you have to consider. And you really do have to look into and look up light and how light works. Like, you have to do your research. You really have to be humble and approach it with an open mind. One thing that was interesting to me is that, like, kind of neutral daylight, when it hits something, the light is gonna be a little bit blue because it's kind of, the blue sky is sort of reflecting off of something. So if you have like a red, the highlight might desaturate a little bit, and you can kind of look at the saturation on the hue slider on the right. When we get to that highlight, it gets quite desaturated from where we were. A little bit desaturated as we pulled that light. And there's something about it that just kind of feels realistic. Maybe we don't know why, but it just kind of feels realistic. And yeah, so an important thing to consider there. But again, this is we super quickly jotted this down, and I think for like a painted sketch, it's pretty good for an hour. Like we got a lot of the more important information down, and we can continue to clarify as we go now. But getting all that stuff down was only possible because we had some basic understanding of a lot of these fundamentals of form, light, line, all of that stuff. When it comes to faces, a lot of people get by just memorizing symbols that a face is without actually looking at the real structure of a face. They just kind of know, oh, well, this is an eye, this is an eyebrow, this is a nose, this is a mouth, and they just kind of get by with this level of just using symbols to describe a face. And they don't necessarily have the trained discipline to understand the skull is a very kind of complex form. And the way that the face is wrapped is it's wrapped around the skull with the cheekbone, the different parts overlapping, the jaw, all of that stuff. So you really do have to look up this stuff. Like you have to you got to pay the toll, baby. You got to look up how this stuff works. And you'll love it. That's the thing, is it's not eating your veggies. It's so cool. Human anatomy is so cool. I don't know who started this narrative of that it's unfun to learn anatomy and anatomy sucks and I hate learning it and oh, my anatomy's so bad. It's like, if shame and embarrassment is keeping you from learning the things that are exciting you, what the hell? What happened to you, man? What did the school system do to you that you out of embarrassment and frustration or shame or whatever felt like you are not allowed to learn about the things that you find most interesting? Because this anatomy stuff is super interesting. Yeah. Anyway, so this stuff is important, to say the least, learning these fundamentals of anatomy and everything. And again, light, material, all that stuff. But what I was saying with the paint and the metal is that metal is, since it's more reflective, you have a higher potential for it to reflect the dark shadows as well as the brightest highlights. So this metal here will actually be able to reflect the whites of the sun coming down from the sky. So it can actually get that genuine, real, glinting white highlight that we want to look for with this kind of metallic stuff. And even in the end, what we can do is we can add an effect that is going to bloom that light a little bit by showing that because it's reflecting, it's blooming just a tad. If you ever see like a glinting knight in shining armor, usually the artist has done some bloom to the white specular highlights because it's so bright. It's like, frying your brain when you're looking at it. But it gives that shining look, right? But this red paint is not going to do that. This red paint is more of a matte texture. which means it's not going to reflect dark shadows or surrounding things like a mirror polished metal would. So like down here, I have some greens because it's probably reflecting some of the grass tones. And again, this is a super loose. We're just roughing it out right now. This stuff takes time to actually polish. But getting the idea down is what we're talking about today. Like how to design. You're designing. It's a live process. Getting something clear and coherent down. So what I love about this piece, and it felt so good making this piece because I was able to utilize all of these hard-fought skills that I've really been cultivating over my entire artistic career, which is like the forms look pretty good, the materials look pretty good, everything's kind of making sense and looking kind of cool. In a short amount of time. And getting something like this coiling red paint, and having the values look good, because they're not going to be going down to black. The value of this will never go down to black in a lit setting, and it's getting lighter, but desaturated is getting towards the apex of the curve here where the sun will be reflecting at us. So yeah, what am I trying to say with all this? What I'm trying to say is that giving yourself the time to really explore these deeper, more interesting and strange fundamentals. What I can't even tell you what it's going to give you, because the only way you're going to know is if you really get it for yourself. Like the freedom it grants you is unbelievable. What I'm really trying to say is that don't let shame, embarrassment, and like, oh, I have to study my fundamentals, otherwise I'm a bad boy. Oh no, I don't want to be a bad boy. Don't look at me. Don't punish me. I'm embarrassed. Dude, I can't believe it. I can't believe you're carrying a mentality that a, centuries too old educational system implanted in your brain. Like, you're such a sheeple for that, dude. You're such a sheeple for, for like, oh, you caught me. I haven't done the thing I'm supposed to do to be a good boy. Dude, it's just insanity. Like if you want to learn how color and light works, just start Googling. Like who cares? There's no benchmark, there's no right way, there are effective ways. And a lot of people have kind of guides of effective ways to learn certain, fundamentals and stuff. But honestly, there's no wrong, like doing it wrong is better than not doing it at all. Or doing it inefficiently is better than not doing it at all. Like that's my hard stance 100%. So, okay, yeah, let's review what we just kind of spoke about here in quite an aggressive way. So we talked about the more kind of philosophical theory side of exploring character design, right? Which is that you really do need to have a purpose in mind. And what's great about working in a genre like fantasy is that it gives you that motive and that story and that narrative and how they're going to accomplish it. You really get on a silver platter. You have a knight. They're going to be fighting. They're going to be, they're going to be fighting. But how we get things to look clear visually, because we're visual artists, we're visual designers, how we get things to look clear is through dedicating ourselves to holistic and complete mastery, which is that you're really trying to understand the theory of what you're doing, but you're also taking steps to be able to practically execute on those visual motifs in an effective, non-monotonous way. Like if you don't know the fundamentals, if you're really loose and you don't have a strong understanding, typically this kind of stuff is going to take you forever and it's not going to look very good. And I know a lot of you guys must feel that frustration of, I spent 10 hours on this. Why doesn't it look good? This is terrible. This is weird. I don't like how this feels, but everybody went through that. All of the artists that you love went through that process of frustration and why the hell doesn't this look good? Every single artist, I'm telling you, there's no artist who was born just being able to do it, every artist has fought through that, like, why the heck isn't this looking as good as I want it to look? So that's kind of the bulk of what I wanted to say at the top of this lecture, because I wanted to, when I busted this out with the Discord crew just now, I felt really good about it. Like I felt excited and it made me want to really polish it and work on it for real and kind of continue to develop it. But it also made me think like, this was impossible for me a few years ago to do this, like literally impossible. just working like agile in this way, just kind of putting down ideas, both narratively and putting down ideas visually, feeling confident enough to execute on this idea of, yeah, there's a coiling red stripe running along the knight's armor. That's a complex thing. If you told a beginner to do that, they'd be like, what the hell am I doing? You know, but here I was able to accomplish it, and I was able to accomplish putting the idea down in an hour. Not a lot of time at all. So I'm encouraging you and imploring you to give yourself the gift that I took way too long to give myself, which is to really sink your teeth into those fundamentals. You know, get after it, man. Learn perspective. Yeah, perspective is confusing in the beginning. The more you learn, the more it all starts to make sense. And then you have it forever, and it's such a cool skill. So yeah, I really, really implore you to give yourself that gift and really knuckle down and enjoy that process, because the fundamentals is not a boogeyman. It should never be considered a boogeyman. It's your friend. The fundamentals are your friend. Seriously. If you guys want to explore these themes, and if you want to spend more time specifically talking about the application of these ideas to the genre of fantasy specifically, I'm going to be doing a designing for fantasy weekend-long workshop next month in February. So the date is still undecided, but when it drops, I'm going to post it here in the community tab on YouTube. So subscribe and notifications and all that stuff. But also if you are in the Discord, or if you follow me on Instagram or whatever, you'll see a notice for that. So keep your eyes open if you want to take that workshop. It's going to be priced at $75. So I'm keeping it super, super low for a 2-day long workshop, over 12 hours of content for $75, of how I think about designing for fantasy and my strategies for doing that. So I'm making that available very, very soon. Literally within days, the trailer will be out, and the course will be available to grab your spot for that live workshop if you want to. Just a little plug there to remind you guys of what you can do if you want to do more educational stuff with me. Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. So now we can kind of relax a little bit and just hang out. So let's just hang out. I can catch up on the chat. My God, everybody's writing. Let's go. All right. Connie Toon says, hey, you stream on Twitch too? Absolutely not. I have not and will never stream on Twitch ever. Fateful says, emoji. Hell yeah. Alex Ali says, hey, my bro, Gabe has a point. Let's go. Thank you, bro. Nave says, didn't Kim Jong-yi say he never studied fundamentals? He just drew consistently? Dude, absolutely. But, you know, what's funny is, well, we'll talk about that. Ayub, what's up? You like my cut? Oh, yeah, guys. I mean, I don't even need these headphones. Yeah, I cut all my hair off. Isn't this crazy? It was day one of the new year. Here, I'll show you guys. It was day one of the new year, and I decided I just needed just a fresh start on everything, man. You know, it was just one of those vibes. So I buzzed it all off. I hope you guys like it. Anyway. The Bosco says, when designing fantasy armor, would you keep the general shape the same and play with the inside? How would you approach this? Also, would you try combining steampunk and medieval armor? Oh, designing armor, it's like a whole thing. I could talk for hours on designing armor, but the only thing you need to do when you're designing armor for fantasy or for sci-fi or anything is all you have to do is operate within the limits of the human joint system. If you have a basic, and I mean really basic, understanding of the human skeleton, you can design any armor you want forever, because all you have to keep in mind is just rotation and levers, and you need points that can move for certain purposes and points that stay rigid for other purposes. Like an example of this is that there's multiple breastplate styles, especially in the 15th, 16th, 15th century. I think 15th century. I actually don't know. Either 15th or at 16th, or maybe later, actually. 17th? Dude, I'm not good with centuries. Anyway, at the height of armor engineering in Europe, there were multiple styles of how to put the breastplate on the body and how to create that hinge. One design is this 2-set system, which is what I designed here, which you have like a bottom piece that attaches at the hip and that just stays locked to your hip. And you have this top piece that's more attached to your torso. So you have full coverage of your abdomen and also your chest, but you also have kind of a nicer rotation maybe. But there were designs, a lot of Italian designs that had a seam. Instead of having 2 pieces top and bottom, it had 2 pieces side and back where there were rivets kind of attaching on the side points. So you'd clasp it on like a cuirass, clink, and you would fasten it on the sides. And then usually it had a skirt that hung off, and that would kind of rotate with your chest and protect your hips typically. So armor is all about movement. The only thing you need to think about when you're thinking about armor is movement. That's the only requirement. Your brain subconsciously knows if something is going to allow or restrict movement. So that's something you got to keep in mind, is that like the power of the human brain is actually quite robust and quite advanced. So you do have to consider that the audience, they're going to feel if it's impractical or not. They're going to feel if it makes sense or not, you know? So yeah, that is what I would say about designing armor, but also, we also talked about the inside. We talked about aesthetic. Yeah. So like there's certain areas that you have a lot of creative license. For instance, like the elbow flanges, like you can put a big spike here, or you can put like a big thing here, and that's kind of okay because your elbow never moves. It's like a rigid thing that just stays there. It's the end point of your hinge. Also your shoulder, like you have some creative license with your shoulder. Like you can put some spikes here, I guess, as long as this character isn't going right up to their face, which typically you can't anyway in armor. You can get away with putting a lot of stuff on the shoulder. So yeah, there's certain areas where you have more creative license. The cuirass is typically pretty on the body, which means that sometimes you can have some like larger plates overlapping the front or the side. And that's always a cool thing when we have, big sort of flaring things protecting the face more. But yeah, armor is really cool. And, again, there's no right way to study it. It's a very strange world of armor and understanding armor and all that stuff. So again, just like Googling and looking things up is pretty cool. Doom says, "Hey dude, first time here. Just wanted to ask. So I got good at gesture drawing a bit, and I wanted to ask if I should jump to the next step or keep doing until I master it. And if it's the first one, what's the next step?" Oh, dude, I'm the wrong guy to ask that question. It's like all that whole like start with gesture, then do figure, then do this, then do that. Dude, that stuff really bothers me because like the people who are teaching the start with gesture, then do figure, then do this, then do that, those are the people who do like classical drawings and images of people. Like that's what they do. Like, Proko, bless his heart, Proko's awesome, one of the best resources online, but that guy's a fine artist and he just really focuses on the figure and portraits. That's what he does. So of course he's going to say, oh, well, if you want to get really good at art, because for him, art is that, start with figure, start with gesture, start with figure, But if you want to do something like comics, you're drawing the figure a million billion times. So you have to understand gesture. You have to understand this, have to understand the figure and all that stuff. So it's like those things are required. But when you're getting started at art, like, dude, you got to just draw stuff that you want to draw. Like you got to draw like a million billion things that you like drawing. You really, if you lock yourself into just this rigid path of like, well, I want to be able to draw. That's my only goal. What do you want to be able to draw? Draw that, man, for sure. And you're going to like hit bumps and go like, my forms are off. And then you're going to go, okay, well, how can I improve my forms? Or you're going to hit a wall of, my values are off. Well, how do I learn values? My colors are off. How do I learn color? It's like, you're only going to hit those walls if you go off course and you explore the unknown and you go into those strange worlds. Seth says, "What up, Gabe? Sad to have missed the challenge earlier due to being at work. Listen, man, we're going to be doing a lot more design challenges in the year 2026. We're back at it, baby. Alex Ali says, when I first saw Kentaro Miura's armors in Berserk manga, it blew my mind. The designs were very unique, dude. So cool. Cunny Toon says, will you approach storytelling, visual, and animation? So I'm not an animator. Well, that's not true. I do animation. But I don't teach animation. And storytelling, visual storytelling is like a super broad subject. I think I talk about visual storytelling all the time. I mean, visual storytelling, it's kind of just that. It's just storytelling with visuals. So, I don't know. I mean, will I approach it? I mean, I talk about it a lot on the streams. Today, I probably won't talk about it today. I mean, animation is kind of a specific thing. Do you mean like character design for animation specifically? Because yeah, we could talk about that, I suppose. Pixel Masala says, hi, Gabriel. Could you please upload the recording of the free shape design workshop that was available on your Gumroad? So the free shape design workshop was a big hurrah. Thank you for hitting 10K. I put 100 spots as like a thank you. So that was kind of for the audience that got me to 10K. And I was so grateful for that audience. And I was so grateful. And, whoever really wanted to jump on it and go for it, then that was kind of for them. Am I going to make the recording available? Maybe I might. We'll see. I might put it up for like, I don't know, like $1 or something like that, or like $5. I don't know. It's always a balance of what you do. Typically when I do things for free, it's like a live thing, but recordings and stuff, I typically, will charge. I mean, I haven't really made the recordings available I've taught like 7 classes and I haven't put any of the VODs up for purchase yet. We'll see if I want to do that. I'm still thinking through that stuff. Loves Grim says, hello. What up, Grim? Ayub says, is there a fundamental that you were pushing away for long? If yes, why? And how did you push yourself to go for it without the frustration? It was not without the frustration. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Without the frustration? What kind of dreamland are you living in, brother? I'm just joking. I love you, Ayub. You're a good guy. What I'll say is that okay, I'm going to speed run this explanation really quick. Here, we'll do story time. We'll do story time mode. So, okay. And what I'm about to tell you is all true. It was all true of my life. So when I was young, I got a ton of praise for visual art. Like everyone was like, you're so talented, you're so this, you're so that. When I was young, like a kid, and that fed the urge to keep drawing for me. So I wanted people to keep saying I was really great and there was something good about me, because it was a strange point in my life where my family fell apart and I was living in a new country and I had no idea, who I was or what I wanted to do. And I really felt like I had to earn my keep among society and people and everyone I was meeting. I had no friends either. So I was an artist. I'm an artist. That's what gives me value. Listen to me because I'm an artist. Like that was my whole life. When I got into school, I missed like 4 years of school, by the way. That's a whole other thing. When I got back into school, I was so behind that the only thing I was exceptional at beyond anyone else was visual art. And it's because it's all I did when I was out of school for 4 years. I just drew and like ran around outside. I drew so much. So I had so much more mileage than anybody else around me. So everything was just super easy for me getting into it, or seemingly so, right? So I go through high school, I love performing arts. I love music. I love all that stuff. I was doing everything, but art always just felt easy and I was always just good at it. And people, again, gave me a ton of praise. I fell into a bit of a bad habit of just doing whatever was easy with art. I stopped pushing myself to learn and started just focusing on just drawing things that were easy, or I wouldn't spend too much time. I would just kind of be like, yeah, this is good. This is good. I'm just gonna leave it here. And I wouldn't really try to go beyond. I spent a year in between high school and university when I just traveled basically. And I had this kind of realization of, listen, I have the opportunity to study in England because I have a British passport. Long story. So art school over there is very, very cheap. It was only £9,000 a year, as opposed to in America, where if I wanted to go to RISD, it would be $40,000 or $50,000 a year for 4 years, which is insane. That's insane. You only do that if you get a scholarship or you have an insanely wealthy family who wants to basically blow almost like, $250,000 on you, maybe getting a little bit better at drawing. Like, that's why you spend that much money on your degree. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to only spend £9,000 for 3 years and get an illustration degree in England. When I was there, I continued to receive praise. I thought I was going to get humbled. I thought I was going to get, pushed. But it was the same story. It was like everyone else was not as voraciously hungry for validation than I was. I was so hungry for it, and I really pushed, and I really was trying. And I really fell in love with learning again, but what I was learning was more about the medium of things. Like, I was learning a lot about comics, poster design, graphic novels. Like, I was learning more about the medium than the actual technical skill of drawing, because I didn't have to. I was just better than everybody I was around. It was so easy. So I then graduated school in the year 2020. So for those of you who were not around during 2020, it was a very weird year. And I was going to move to London, England to study, to make comics. I was going to do that. That was my plan. I was going to become a graphic novelist, and I was going to make dope comics and live my dream. But I went back to where I lived before, back to my home, which was in Bermuda, which is an island in the Atlantic. Long story, doesn't matter. There's no art scene there at all, like zero. And there was just no one who was doing what I wanted to do at all. And so what I did for the first time was I kind of just went online, and I went, well, what's going on, on the internet? Because who knows, I was on YouTube a lot, learning a lot on YouTube, and I would think I was like looking at some Bobby Chu videos and all of that. And I kind of discovered Lightbox Online and all that stuff. So I ended up, wow, I'm really dragging the story out. But what ended up happening was I went on Lightbox Online, and I met other artists who took it as seriously as I did for the first time ever. It was crazy. For the first time ever, I was meeting artists. And this was when I was like really, in my groove and in my grind. I was doing a ton of line-based work, like a ton of line-based stuff. And my sense of shape and rhythm and flow was very, very developed for the stage in my career. Like, I had a really, really flowy and strong line, sense of shape in my lines. And every single person who I met who looked at my art went, "Oh my God, your lines. Oh my God, your shapes." And so I really started to identify with that. And I went, oh, I'm a line guy. I never really thought about it before, in the past, but I was like, oh, I'm a line guy. I had never been trained in color, in light, in, any of that stuff, like rendering. I never studied that. I never knew how any of it worked. I knew some anatomy from YouTube, and I knew some drawing techniques from YouTube, but I never went and learned the rendering painting thing. So I started to only receive praise from just drawing lines. And doing like line-based characters. And if you scroll to the bottom of my Instagram, if you go look, you can kind of see like what I used to do. It's like very shapy, very line-based, very super saturated colors, vibrant colors, all of that stuff. And I was just excited. I got excited because people liked me. They liked my work. They liked what I did. And I started to rub shoulders with artists who were very, very good, but who had a very different life than I did. They were people who knew they wanted to be concept artists way earlier than I did. And they were people who were really dedicated. And instead of going to art school, they just went straight into the workforce. There was studios around them where they lived. So they just worked at those studios, and they got experience just doing the actual job. Some standout examples of these guys. The most important one for me was, I think, like Thomas Chamberlain Keane. Meeting Thomas Chamberlain Keane was a huge, like, not a wake-up call, but it was interesting, because it was like someone with, I would say, like a very kindred spirit in terms of passion and interest, and like approach, but he was just so much farther ahead than I was. And it was an interesting, and if you ever see this Thomas, if you watch this Thomas, that's gonna be really funny. But that, honestly, it was a bit of it was a bit of a wake up call of like, oh, I have no idea how to paint. I have no idea how to paint. I've never done like a real serious, painting before. I started looking at splash art. I started looking at all these guys who were really strong concept artists who weren't as line based. They could really paint and they were fast. So I developed this, what I was criticizing before, of this like embarrassment and kind of shame reflex of, oh, I've never studied that. I'm so behind. The only thing I'm ahead in is line. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to be a line guy. That's my whole thing. And that was a very interesting decision. And so to answer your original question, Ayub, I basically made painting and light and all of that stuff and materials and everything, I made that my enemy. And I made that the thing I don't do, because the thing I do is really good lines with really good shapes and really good flow and rhythm and this and that. That's what I do. I don't do the rendering thing. I don't do that. And I would even play it down and make fun of it with my friends. Like, oh, dude, can you believe these like render monkeys, bro? They think they're good. And dude, I was like, it was not good, but that's why I pushed back against it. It's because I just couldn't do it immediately. And because of my relationship with art, it was my lifeline to my identity. I didn't have the space in my life or my family to just enjoy art for art's sake, even though it was always in my heart. It's like I just didn't have the opportunity or the space. It was very much like a lifeline, and it was my way of like proving that I deserve to exist, was because I'm good at art and I'm better than everyone else. That was my experience when I was younger. So again, a lot of this goes into my philosophy around teaching and my philosophy around like why I'm so hell-bent on encouraging people to just draw what they like and do what they like and not get sidetracked by these weird, strange things. And get locked into this like locking sort of like, well, I'm not good at painting, so I'm never going to paint, like, why would you ever limit yourself like that? If you love art and you love visual storytelling, and painting is fun, I'll tell you, man, it's fun. So how did I do it without the frustration? How did I approach painting and light and materials without frustration? I did not approach it without frustration. It was unbelievably frustrating. I think about once a month I would have this impulse of like, I'm gonna make a painting and it's gonna be good. I'm gonna prove to everybody that I can paint. And then I would make a painting and it would suck. It would like suck ass, and I'd go, oh no, oh no, I am bad. Oh no, I do suck. But every single month I would do this thing of like I'm gonna make a painting right now. So when you do that every month for like 2 years, you pick up things. Every time you make a painting, you pick up things. You go, something's different. Something's a little bit, I got stuck here last time, but I didn't get stuck this time. And I actually slowed down and I started to think more. Instead of just impulsively running into a wall as fast as I could every time, I actually slowed down and I said, okay, why is this taking me longer than it's taking my friends? I clearly don't have the understanding of just how to put paint down and have it be correct the first time. How do I do that? Okay, well, you have to understand that, how light interacts with the material is specific to its characteristics, both of the light and both of the material. And there's a value range that certain materials can meet that they will never meet if it's a different material. Like, for instance, this is my go-to when I'm teaching. If you have a character who's in a white shirt and just like a white shirt, and they're in black pants, if you use a black shadow or just a dark shadow to do the shading of the shirt, it looks kind of weird, right? This looks kind of weird. Even this is not right. And if you use white to do the highlights on the pants, it's not going to look good. What you come to understand is that white is only going to get so dark, when you're in a neutral lighting scenario. The shadows are only going to be so dark. And with pants, the highlights, the black pants, the highlights are only going to be so light. They're not going to be very light. They're going to be something like that. And all of a sudden, that looks way more correct than what we had before. And thinking about that with then skin tone, and kind of going, okay, well, how does that apply to skin tone? You know, if you're painting or drawing a person of color, a lot of the time you have to describe the form with a, oh, I am not sharing my screen. That's hilarious. Yeah, here we go. Oops. Sorry. My bad. I wonder if someone pointed out in the chat. I didn't see it. But here you can see like the white shirt with the gray shadow and the black pants with the other one. What the thing I was demoing that was wrong is if you use a dark gray to do the highlights on the shirt, or if you use a white to do the highlights on the pants, it just looks weird, looks incorrect. But if you have it closer in value to the original thing, like that just looks more correct to what would happen just in light, right? That's so funny. I looked over, I was like, wait, I'm not sharing my screen. But yeah, so that was a huge level up for me. Like just that one thing really changed the way that I painted and drew and all of that stuff. So one by one, I was learning these building block things. And the exciting thing is that it was working. So I kept Googling and I kept looking and I kept looking and I kept looking and I kept learning because I got the hunger, because it was working. I was getting better at painting. Now, you know, what's so funny is like, the whole painting thing now that I can kind of do it pretty decently. I'm not an amazing painter, but the fact that I can kind of do it enough now is it's enough for me, because now I can just do it because I like it. I'm not doing it to prove anything. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to, you know, appear better than or more than, or I'm trying to be the same as, you know, these other guys who I hold in high esteem, but I don't really want to do what they do. You know, I kind of lost the plot for a little bit there. But yeah, so I really avoided painting, and I avoided light, and I avoided materials for years of my life. Only recently in the past few years have I really dedicated myself. And honestly, it's because of teaching. I had to teach and people were not able to draw or paint things. And I'm like, why can't you do that? They're like, I just don't know what to do. And you got to go, okay, well, this is how values work. This is how form works. And then I kind of realized like, oh, maybe I can paint. You know, a lot of it was because I was teaching, but it was not without frustration, Ayub. It was full of frustration, unbelievably high amount of frustration. Like, you know, and it's like, okay, that's fine. You know, you can do that. That's okay. You're allowed. Okay, so let's keep reading here. Ron Sensei says, you seem like a pretty chill guy. Oh, just you wait, buddy. Just you wait. Now, yeah, I'd say I'm pretty chill. Thanks, man. Pixel Masala says, no problem with purchasing and support. Oh, dude, yeah, sweet. Yeah, I should really do the thing. Oh my god, everyone's like, are you sharing your screen? Bosco says, is there any requirements in skill for your February workshop? No, it's going to be advanced theory and advanced application, but it will still help you as a beginner. If you're like a beginner, it'll really help you because it'll put into context the things that you need to learn so that you get excited about learning those things. Whenever I teach fundamental skills, I always tie it to application, because it's the only way you're going to get people to actually sit down and learn and listen. It's the only way. But yeah, if you want to get faster at designing and character design, just giving yourself, you know, those few sessions. You don't have to study the fundamentals like every Monday, every week of your life. It's like, no, dude, if you want to know how subsurface scattering works, just Google it, man. If you want to learn how like structural color works on a butterfly wing, just Google it. Like, honestly, a lot of this stuff is just physics, and it's like not that crazy either. It's not that crazy. It's just kind of, you know, it just is what it is. You know what I mean? Anyway, there was something someone said though, which was really interesting. It was, Nave said, didn't Kim Jong-yi say he never studied the fundamentals? He just drew constantly. Yeah. Kim Jong-yi also would do these visualization exercises where he would visualize an object in his mind and he would turn it in his mind. So he had a very visual imagination. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, you know, like I know some people have like that aphantasia thing where they can't visualize things. Sometimes I struggle to visualize things, but I don't think I have that. What am I saying? Oh yeah, being able to understand how to turn form. Yeah, you're not learning from a guy who's saying, this is how form works, this is how perspective works. He just sort of got the understanding by doing it. Like, knowledge can be acquired in so many different ways. There's no right or wrong way. One thing that I think is actually a bit of a trap these days is because the art education material is so good now, people stop just trying to brute force it. And I think you should be doing both as feverishly as possible. Like, if your desire is mastery of the visual arts, which is such a cool mission to be on in life. It's a very altruistic, cool, awesome journey that I love, and I would never trade for anything else. If you really want to be on that mission and that quest, then you need to be learning, just trying to figure it out as much as possible, and also giving yourself plenty of opportunities to expose yourself to the unknown, like what the unknown is for you. Bosco says you have a date in mind. Oh, for the workshop? It's probably going to be, it's definitely a weekend. It's going to be a Saturday, Sunday thing. And I don't know, man, I have to look at my calendar. It was actually going to be this month, but it's just too short notice. You know, I got back from the holidays and I just did not, I was not able to get on that fast enough to have enough time to like sell seats and stuff. It was going to be the 24th, 25th, I think, but I have to push it to February now. So there's like enough time to market it and stuff. But, it's going to be a weekend, probably mid to late February, I would say. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Cool. Okay, sweet. Mosshead says, I'm really bad at proportions. Everything goes well from head to chest, but the remaining bottom parts feel off every time. I couldn't understand how to correct myself. Any tips? Oh, totally. Well, first of all, let's just reframe that verbally. So when you say I'm really bad at proportions, wording does matter. Unfortunately, as much as we wish it didn't matter, it really does matter. So you have to be careful of how you word things. What I would say is you are inexperienced at proportions. You do not have proportions down yet. And that's okay. That's like totally allowed, totally fine. So you're inexperienced with the proportions and you have an easy time with the head and the chest, but the rest just feel off. That is likely due to the fact that the face is the most interesting part of the human body. And so you are way more likely to draw it more often. So typically people draw faces like 10,000 times more than they're going to draw anything else, because they're just so interesting. The face is so dynamic. It's so captivating, both from like a, evolutionary biology, psychology sort of point of view of like, oh, the face is captivating, but also it's just fun to draw and interesting, right? It's a mix of symbol and angle, proportion, and it has, it's expressing something, it's saying something, it's really engaging. So you're going to draw the face more than the rest. So that's probably why you feel more comfortable with the face and the head and the chest. So the answer, unfortunately, to improving with your proportions is practice. So it's doing it a lot. Practice doesn't mean you stop drawing the fun stuff and you spend time drawing unfun stuff. What practice means is that you're just doing a lot, right? So like if you would say like to like a basketball player who goes to practice, it's like, yeah, they spend time in practice, but they're also playing the game, and it's still fun to be in practice. Then when you're in the game, and you're playing and you're really dynamic, that's also a practice. You improve by playing as well. So just doing it more, drawing more is going to help you. Drawing the full body more often is going to help too. If you're able to have a simplified kind of maquette that you can draw to get the body down fast, that's a great way to also improve your proportions. So the way that I do gestures personally, and everybody has their own method, or no, a lot of people learn a certain way, I guess, but my method for doing gesture is usually I'll start with the head or whatever body part feels interesting. Sometimes I'll do a struggle for the body. Sometimes I won't. But the most important thing for me is like the spine movement is really important. And then what I'll do from here is I'll map out the arms and the legs. So for instance, I'll just kind of track the joints, because for me, the joints are the most important part of gesture. So like if this character is, walking and let's say they have their arm limply out and they're holding like a dog leash and the dog is walking and the dog also has like a weird gesture or something like that. This is how I'll start with my gestures typically. is I'll do some stuff like this, where I'll track literally just the joints. And this is one way you can improve proportion because, or at least it makes my proportions better, because you track the size of these things. You know, you have the rib cage, you have like the hip bones here, but these things stay pretty consistent overall. And this works for anything. Like if you want to do like a jumping pose or something, you can track the arms kind of going out. You can track the curvature of the body kind of curving up, the knees kind of coming forward and that kind of thing. So I like literally, I guess it's just a stickman, to be honest. I like just a stickman approach. And then from here, you can build out all the musculature, because really that's what the body is. It's bones puppeted by muscle. So if you just put the bones down, you can draw the kind of muscle shapes on top, and you're going to be, for the most part, pretty okay, I would say. And then you got your really loose, rough sketch, and then you can kind of go anywhere from there, I would say. Chest overlaps the thing here, and they're looking at you. They're going, "Wah, hello." So that's how I would improve or that's one way that my proportions improved, I suppose. But yeah, you're doing great. Samuel Macado says, do you make feedback of your follower portfolio or piece? I mean, I run classes and like I look through work. I mean, I have a lot of one-on-one mentees that kind of want some advice or review, and we'll do review sessions, and I'll look at their portfolio works. But sometimes I'll look at the kind of challenge entries on stream sometimes, I guess. But I don't really make it like a habit of reviewing work specifically. Yeah, you got it, Mossad. Keep going, man. This has been super fun, guys, talking. I'm probably going to call it relatively soon because my next engagement is approaching, but I really wanted to just talk about this night, talk about because honestly, like when I finish this little guy here, and again, it's still a long way from done, by the way, it's a long way from done, but just doing this as fast as I did, it was definitely one of those benchmark, that was easy. That was weirdly easy and weirdly fast. Like, what's going on there? And then there's you only go up after that, when you're on that kind of rate of improvement. So it's exciting. It's like an exciting kind of cool thing. You know what I mean? To kind of get to new levels, get to new spots, get to new benchmarks. I'm going to keep noodling this for a while. A part of me really just wants to make the whole helmet red. Like, how sick would that look? Yeah, see, look, that's already so cool. It's so sweet. Look at this. Red helm. It's a red helmet. Let's go. Yeah, this is freaking sweet, dude. And the cool thing about painting metal is you can kind of have areas where it's clearly flecked off because of the battle. So that's a really fun way of adding cool details and telling story with your pieces too. It's like super cool. Oh, that looks so sick. Oh, yes. Painting in the wear and tear. So dope. Look at that. That's so cool. That's so cool. Nice. Nice. Yeah. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about, baby. It's what I'm talking about. But yeah, guys, feel free to ask some more questions before we close out for the day. I mean, I think I'll give it a few more minutes. So any questions you have about anything, really, I'll answer them, I suppose. Ayub says, have you ever started a project knowing that you might have some difficulties with some part of the project process? Or do you use your skills effectively to suit the project? No, I don't. Most of my projects are for the purpose of getting better. So, yeah, I talked about this a lot in my last course, actually, of how I usually I'm attracted to doing projects that are pushing me in a new direction. For those of you returning viewers who are familiar with my Fish World project, it's like a long-term project I've been working on for a long time. It really came out of a desire to get faster and just put ideas down and get really efficient putting ideas down. So the work I did for that was super loose, and it's kind of like this kind of sort of, not this style, but this kind of way of working where you're just very dynamic, very just kind of getting something down, just pushing, And that was kind of cool. But then after I feel like I got that process down and I wanted to improve more, I started working on my Sky Pirate project, which was it was cool. It was like a cool new avenue for me to explore, where I was both having that effective approach, but then I also had the really tight lines and the clear lines of my previous project. So it brought that kind of material exploration and getting ideas down fast into being able to keep it clean as well. So that was kind of cool. So I usually work on projects that are going to drive me forward in my skill. And I think that's why I was able to keep a very fast rate of improvement, even after being like so lazy for so long with my practice and my work. Cause I really was, man. Like I really like in art school and all that stuff. Like I gained a lot of project management skills, but my actual painting skills really, they did take a hit. Because they weren't going as fast as my other skills. But, I'm very grateful for all my project management skills. I feel like that's why I'm able to achieve a lot and, be consistent online and talk coherently here and, all that stuff. So nothing's ever wasted. Nothing's ever, bad to do. It's like, I don't know. If I wanted to be like a one trick art, just get really good at art, but have no idea how to talk about it, I guess that would have been cool. But I don't know. I like teaching. It's like a big passion of mine now. Which it was not expected, by the way. I did not think I was going to like teaching. But I love it. It's become my favorite thing to do. And it's cool. And it's sick. And it makes me better. I get so much better from teaching. It's crazy. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Yeah, great question, though. But we got more. Masa said a flower design on the helmet would be so cool. Oh yeah, they could be like a rose thorn dragon, group. There could be a cool like rose thorn vibe or something maybe. Who knows? There could be something cool going on. Captain Juniper says, do you plan on doing any more Fish World or world building streams? Oh, 100%, man. Yeah, dude, I've got a lot of Fish World stuff cooking in the books. I've got a lot of really cool ideas for Fish World. Mossad says, did you cover the research process, initial sketches after gathering references in any of your YouTube videos or lives? Anyways, I'm going to watch your vids regularly. Ah, thanks, dude. That's awesome. Did I cover research process? There's a great one I did on using reference effectively. It's pretty cool. Let me see if I can pull up the VOD. It's my most viewed stream so far. I was like, yeah, when it did those numbers, I was like, what the heck? Wait. Anyway, I'll show you. Or I'll try. To find it. Yeah. This one was cool because I was talking about how like image and research and stuff and all that is can help. Here, this is the video. I think. Is that the video? Let's see. Yes, it is. But my process of research is very different. I think it's very non-traditional. Like I'm not the kind of guy who gets like a vision board for stuff and who, meticulously gathers a bunch of research. I kind of just jump right in. This whole thing was 100%, just so you guys know, this entire thing right here is 100% from imagination. There's not a single piece of reference used for this. But that doesn't mean that I didn't use reference because I've studied knight armor. I've looked at so much knight armor like so many times. So it's like when people say drawing from imagination, I'm drawing from imagination and this and that. It's like, yeah, sure. You're just pulling from stuff. Plus, I'm a big advocate for gaining understanding over the subject you want to draw. I think that's the most effective way to use reference is you're using reference to gain understanding. Like that's just the most important thing. So but I don't talk about it a lot, or I don't talk about that process of getting vision boards and this and that. Usually when I'm working on a project, the vision board just is kind of all the sketches I've done for the project so far. Like it just kind of builds and builds and builds, and it becomes its own kind of reference library, just the kind of work that I've done for the project, which I like. It's kind of a cool process, and it kind of makes it, I guess for me, I don't know, like a little bit, it's cool. It's like I'm entering into like my own kind of archive of what I like, It's kind of cool. Anyway, that's what I'd say about that. Yeah, there would be a lot of nicks in the paint off this helmet, I'll tell you that much. Because of, all the war and everything. So what's cool about doing this kind of thing and like doing kind of scratches that go into the helmet and you have patches missing and scratches and stuff like that on your, like out of the paint of something that's painted, is the metal underneath still has those kind of characteristics of being reflective and all of that stuff. So you get this cool thing where if we like select out these little areas or whatever, you can paint in those specular highlights. We can hide the selection and we can kind of take these areas and kind of paint them in a little bit. And it's cool. It's cool because then you get this this cool effect where now we've got some cool metal scratches that, you know, have some glinting qualities to them, and we can kind of, you know, tone it down a little bit in some areas and bring it out in other areas. It's so cool. I love doing this kind of stuff. But I didn't used to. Didn't used to love doing it, but now I like it. It's kind of cool. Yeah, this was a super fun stream. It reminds me a lot of the earlier streams that I used to do where I would literally just kind of work on something and then I'd go live and I'd talk about it and then we'd have like a chill Q&A. That's kind of the structure of my streams, which is nice. And I think it's good for like viewership time too, because if it's just straight lecture, people are more likely to keep watching it and then stick around for the Q&A just because, you know, they've already been watching for like an hour or something. Because the time people spend viewing something, it means that the video is going to get recommended to more people. And the only reason we want that is because I really want people to get excited about drawing. Like I want people to see the videos because I'm trying to be as inspiring and encouraging as possible. So like that's probably a good thing, right? So yeah, it's really good when a bunch of people see this stuff because it's like I feel like I'm really trying to get people hyped about art and design and whatnot. Alrighty, let's see if we got any more questions before we wrap up. Oh, Patricia! Says, where's your hair? Yeah, goblins buzzed my head, dude. They got him. Mosshead says, but you already have your visual library with your experience. Oh my God, visual library. Visual library. That's going to be my next live stream. I hate the term visual library. I think visual library is one of the most destructive, annoying, frustrating terms that is used in the art zeitgeist. I think it's so bad. I have so much to say about it. And we'll save that for the next live stream, baby. We'll save it. Oh my God. Visual library. You triggered me, dude. And like, you wouldn't expect someone to be triggered by the term visual library. That's what makes it so ridiculous. Man, that's so funny. Captain Juniper says, the red paint on the helmet reminds me of Ahsoka Tano's temp squad at the end of season 7. Dude, so true. So sick. Oh. That show is so good. So good. Ayub said, nice to see you. Picking up the stream again. Wish you the best, man. Keep up the good work. It keeps me going. Oh, dude, you keep me going, brother. Seth says Gabriel is waging war on the conventional art teaching tropes. I really am, dude. It's like my hit list is shape design. What a non-sentence. What a non-term. What does shape design even mean? It's ridiculous. It just gets people confused. The fact that everyone asks about shape design all the time is such a sentiment of how ridiculous and inefficient it is as a term. It's complete jargon. It's only existed for like a decade. And now it's like this crazy thing everyone talks, oh, shape design, shape design, shape design. What is shape design? No one can answer it. It's ridiculous. Anyway, shape design, visual library, all this stuff, man. It's so annoying, man. It's so annoying to me. Because when I'm teaching, I have to deal with it. I have to deal with the aftermath of these inefficient terms that like fry the minds of my students, and I'm trying to teach them. And it's like, I have to I have to rip the parasite out of their mind and like drown it in acid, dude, you know, so it can't live, so it can't breed. Anyway. So no, he didn't do anything. I'm just being hyperbolic for the joke, but I am serious about everything I've said. Anyway, this has been really fun, guys. Yeah, we'll talk about Visual Library the next stream. That's a great idea. So probably going live on Wednesday, most likely. Yeah, Wednesday's probably the day. And then we'll continue on. But thanks for hanging out. It was super fun talking about this night, painting on it a little bit and doing a little bit more. And who knows, you'll probably see this guy on Instagram tomorrow or something. I'll probably work on it later tonight, wrap it up, get it online tomorrow. But this has been super fun. You guys rule. Thanks for tuning in. Really happy to be back after the holidays and super stoked to continue streaming. Again, look out for the class coming in February. It's going to be a 2-day workshop. It's going to be rocking. And keep an eye out for, I'm doing a really big thing in after March, in like April through April, May, June, April through June. I'm doing a pretty major thing that I'm not going to talk about yet, but it's going to be crazy. It's going to be cool. But yeah, workshop next month. Keep your eyes peeled. When it goes live, I'll try to remember to put the link in this description too, or in the comments here or something. But yeah. All right, guys. Much love. You all rule, and I'll talk to you all soon. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, baby. See you guys later. Peace.